Okay, should be recording now. Does that help at all with Lee, or you still hear him just the same?
You're going to hear him some. Hopefully when you download this to the whatever Podbean or whatever it is, that it'll edit some of that stuff out.
Yeah, hopefully.
Cool. Well, Alex, you are the first video podcast. What we thought was missing was really just that reaction and just have a little better conversation. And we've had some of these future podcasts we're doing have multiple guests. So it's like we've got one plan that has 3 sisters. It's like, man, how do you really dig in and ask specific questions to the 3 girls if you don't even know who you're talking to? So
yeah,
we'll get a little bit better conversation going, we think. So we wanted to try this. So I appreciate you jumping over to this versus doing the ringer. The ringer worked good. It was just, it was all phone based. So
right.
A little bit different, but so what's you want to get going, Dom?
Sure, I'm ready whenever you are.
Alex, are you good?
I'm all good. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing some more about your story. Obviously, I know a little bit about it, but I'm sure you'll dig in a little bit deeper with what you're doing over there. So I'm excited for it. Do you have a time cutoff, hard cutoff?
Me? No, I don't.
Okay, we're going to try to keep it somewhere between probably 30 and 40 minutes, Dom.
That sounds about right.
And then anything on the audio, if you get in there or something said that you don't want published, we'll obviously be able to edit that out and cut it out. We haven't had any issues, but if something you're like, man, I don't really want that to be in there, or something, whatever it is, we'll send a copy to you and just shoot it back like, hey, I want this snippet cut out, and we'll handle that. So
sounds good.
Other than that, Dom, you ready?
Yep.
Get this over here. All right, I'll get going here, okay? So we want to welcome you to another episode of Hometown Highlights. I'm really excited about today. I'm excited for our guest. Very personal to me. It's actually my cousin. So we are going to have a conversation with Alex Pessell. He was born and raised in Arcadia, Ohio, went to Arcadia High School, and he obtained a Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Engineering over at Trine University. He's currently over at John Hopkins, looking at that same program, Biomedical Engineering, for his PhD. He's raised by Trent and Shauna Pessell. His mother is an RN at Blanchard Valley, and his dad is a physical ed teacher at Fostoria. Has one sister, Leah. The family pet is a miniature schnauzer, which is really near and dear to Alex's heart. I know that. He was very involved at Trine University in his undergraduate. He played baseball a few years. He was involved in various leadership groups. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, but the Eininger Fellows was a business group that connected you with the business side of engineering.
Yeah.
Correct. That's correct. Some of the hobbies you like to do, you like to collect baseball bobbleheads. You're into 3D printing, playing pickup basketball, golfing, and riding your bike. Your best strength is balancing a busy workload and being creative. That's a true engineer. One of your weaknesses is communication and holding things to yourself. Your mentor, you mentioned David Spridgen, who I also know. He was one of your coaches. He taught you so much about life beyond high school and how to make your mark. Well, you're on your way to a very successful career, so I can appreciate that. Let's introduce Alex Pessell. How are you doing today, Alex?
Good, guys. Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to do this. So
awesome. We're glad to have you. So what is going on? You're over at John Hopkins right now, correct?
Yep, currently in Baltimore, Maryland. We had gotten here about a month ago. So I'm kind of completing this transition of a new move, which is always exciting. I had to do that in college first time. And now this is a huge city. So this is very new to me. I actually drove and dropped my girlfriend off at the airport today. So there's a lot of traffic, and that's not normal in Northwest Ohio or the Findlay area. So there's a lot of getting used to here, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, so you're from a town of what, 600?
Yeah, maybe.
And you're in and now you're in a definite city with multiple millions. So it's a eye opener for a small town kid. But John Hopkins obviously is one of the premier education facilities in the United States. So it's pretty impressive where you're at there. So after trying, what made you seek out John Hopkins, or did they seek you out? What did that look like?
Right. So I think the process for generally people who are engineers and want to do a PhD in anything engineering, it's just like anything with applying to undergraduate universities. You're looking at places that suit you think would suit you the best. It's interesting with graduate school though, because it's not like undergraduate, in which, at least in my case, classes aren't as important. You have to take some. But what's more important is doing research and gaining skills that you could eventually take on to industry or in the academic side of things as a professor. So the reason I had looked at Johns Hopkins is it's one of the top premier schools in biomedical engineering research. And if I felt like I was going to get any or obtain more research skills I don't already have and make my time worthwhile, I better do it at the best place that I can get into, in my personal opinion. So I think I applied to 7 schools and only got accepted into a couple, but Johns Hopkins happened to be one of them. And when you're looking at schools, you really want to look at the professor and the mentor that you want to work with, because they're going to guide you throughout your entire time there, and then as well after you're there. They're really going to set you up with great opportunities, whether you want to become a professor or somebody out in industry. So it's really about the fit. You got to really enjoy the research you're doing in the lab, and you really have to choose a mentor that you think fits you best. So it's those 2 factors are definitely the most critical in the process.
I want to talk about the project that you're researching right now. To me, it's insane, the level. Like, I can't even process, actually. So I'm just going to read what you said. I have an ongoing project looking at the blood-brain barrier and using brain blood vessel on a chip technology to look at ways to get drugs into the brain for patients with Alzheimer's and more. Mm-hmm. So that's what you're researching, right?
Yeah. So right now, my first little project is I'm trying to understand how pressure changes in blood vessels can affect the blood-brain barrier. If you don't know, the blood-brain barrier is it's unique in that it doesn't allow a lot of solutes such as glucose, which is important for you every day in life, and water, oxygen, basic simple gases. Things are diffusing in and out of your blood vessels all the time. But the blood-brain barrier is special in that it really limits what diffuses in and out. Because if you have anything that's toxic going into your brain, obviously doesn't lead to good consequences. So what we're trying to do is actually expand the permeability of the brain, meaning we want to get more into it. And why would we want to do that? It's very important in research today. We're trying to get drugs into the brain for people with like Alzheimer's, for instance. But the difficulty is because of how it's designed in nature, the blood vessels are so tightly compact with cells, a variety of cells, it's very difficult to get drugs into the brain, and we really want to accomplish that. But in order to do so, you gotta find ways to manipulate that barrier, but not manipulate it permanently, because that's a fine line you're walking. You don't want to, induce the brain to any negative circumstances. So that's kind of like my first project, is I'm trying to figure out, what types of pressure change the dilation of the blood vessels in the brain, and how that alters the junctions between cells and what can go in and out of the blood vessels. So yeah, I try to explain it in a very simple way, but at the end of the day, it's very important that clinically that we can get drugs into the brain, and that's a way to do it, is manipulate the pressure.
Wow.
I'm going to pretend like I know what that means. No, I think that's great, Alex. Obviously, it's something that, you can see the passion that you have for that and the detailed. I do want to go more into this topic, but before we do that, I would like to go back in time with you. I want to go back to, when you are at your time in high school, you're at Arcadia, and let's go back to, lead us up to where you're at now, obviously at John Hopkins. So if we go back, you mentioned that you played baseball when you were at Trine. So obviously, you played baseball in your high school. Like, what other activities were you involved with at your time at Arcadia?
Right. So at Arcadia, I tried to play a lot of sports. I played football, basketball, and baseball. So it was a year-round affair, for all 4 years. And basically, athletics was my thing, and I really enjoyed it. And then academics, that was just, I prioritized it certainly, but my mind was focused on doing sports and being social with my friends. But when it came time to choosing an undergrad, university, or maybe what I wanted to do with life, that was a little difficult for me. I knew that I was pretty good at basic science and math concepts. So engineering was probably best for me. I broke my femur in high school when I was a junior playing quarterback, and that's really what taught me, I want to do biomedical engineering. When I got to the hospital, I thought I'd be in a cast for like weeks, but I was walking the next day after surgery. So like, just the marvels of the field is just tremendous. I mean, look how far we've came. 20 years ago, you would have been on a bed for a couple months, maybe even longer than that. But the point is, the innovation was there, and that's exciting to me. And I really like to be creative and do new things. What's hot in the field right now, or some exciting topics. So that led me to Trine, but it was a smaller school, so I could play baseball, which was awesome. I mean, the social dynamic there and the ability to, every day in the spring, hang out with the guys and just play ball, it makes you feel like a kid again. So that was great. But really what I got out of Trine after high school was into more like professional and academic clubs and activities. Like Ryan, I mentioned Einer Fellows. That's like a joint business engineering group where we kind of share ideas with each other for our professional development and sharing networking and how can we grow as leaders. So activities like that were instrumental. I also started the local chapter for our Biomedical Engineering Honor Society in college. I felt like, is my calling to leave a lasting mark at Trine in some way or another. And that was probably the best way to do it, since we didn't have something like that. So yeah, from athletics to undergrad, I definitely transitioned from more of an athletics perspective in life to a more academic and professional. But I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. And I think the path that it took is definitely worth it for me.
Yeah, I think that's cool. You saying, that kind of was one experience as far as breaking your femur. Like, obviously, I'm sure it was a terrible experience, and a lot of pain. But looking back on it now, with hindsight being 2020, look back at that and see how that has really changed the trajectory of your life. Because you said, whoa, like it was something you were interested in, which then helped with that initial interest that you had with science and with math to say, this is the path that I want to go towards, in the next step. It's just cool seeing, obviously an unfortunate circumstance turning around for good and really helping you direct, kind of your career path after that.
Right. A lot of people don't know, what their passions are in life. And it's little things like that you can stumble upon that really can kind of guide you into, what you're interested in, but they come in unexpected ways, certainly.
Yeah. So you briefly touched on it. I guess go into a little more depth as far as that transition for you then from, the athletic mind, 3-sport athlete, to then transitioning to college and going more academic and involved with different groups outside of athletics. Was that a fairly seamless transition for you, or how, go into a little more depth for me and how that transition was for you?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, when you're going to college, a lot of relatives, family, friends, people who've been through it, they always say like, you're going to have a ton of time now, but at the same time, you're not going to have a ton of time. It's definitely a balance. So not doing all those athletics definitely saved me a ton of time. But on the flip side of that, with baseball, during that period, during the main season, I mean, the time just really eats up at you, and you really got to prioritize what you're doing. So for me, it was pretty seamless. I felt like I had really prepared myself for the next challenge, and engineering, I knew it was going to be difficult no matter what you're going to do, and especially trying to balance extracurriculars and even baseball for a couple of years. I mean, it was very difficult, but for me, I felt like the transition was fairly simple. I just had to live a couple weeks in college to understand, how does this work? You can never be prepared enough for a new life change like that. I mean, it's big.
Yeah. No, I agree completely with you. You mentioned with the time aspect, because that is something you hear a lot as, a high school student, that, oh, you're going to have so much time. And you're right, you do, but it's all just, it teaches you time management, and it teaches you you just naturally learn how to use your time. In your case, obviously you got plugged into, created different groups, got plugged into different organizations and such on campus to fill that time, compared to, obviously there are numerous other ways that you could, fill up your time when you are in college. And, even you think of like during the daily, like when I think back, okay, you were only in class, we were in class for what, 3 hours a day in college, but it's those hours in between that obviously there's the homework outside of it, then also those organizations that you are spending your time with. Again, those are passions, those are things that you enjoy to fill that time with. And then over the course of 4 years, by the time you become a senior and involved with all these different things, it's like, well, wasn't I supposed to have a bunch of free time here? Like, I just feel super overwhelmed. But it's all, it's good things and things that you decide and things that you want to do that really are just preparing you for the next step.
Yeah, no, it's certainly, and even the transition from undergrad to graduate school, I mean, I'm discovering right now, it's a different type of vibe, because you're trying to work a 40-hour-a-week schedule, because this is technically your job. You're getting paid to do this. But at the same time, in your first couple of years, you're taking classes. You might be a TA for a class. So it's just, I feel like every stage of life, you're always given the same amount of time, but you're now given different opportunities you must fulfill. So, I mean, every step of the direction, you just got to learn to balance it. And college certainly teaches you a lot about that.
For sure. So I know you briefly touched on it earlier, and just make sure I'm understanding correctly. So you just graduated from Trine in May of this year, correct?
Yeah,
in May of 21.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So now this is your first semester at John Hopkins then. So yep. I'm assuming then, so what did that senior year look like for you at Trine? You said that you had applied for 7 total schools. How much time did you devote, or what did that look like, even just applying for those graduate programs?
Yeah, the application process is certainly rigorous. So one thing that I was kind of torn. I didn't know if I wanted to continue research, because I had done some in undergraduate. That's how I kind of got interested in doing a PhD. I didn't know if I wanted to go that route. I didn't know if I wanted to go to medical school. That's something I had always been toying with on the side, something that I kind of felt passionate about, but wasn't sure, because I like to work with people. So I spent it the summer prior prepping for the MCAT and the GRE. So those are like the ACT of getting into undergrad. So the GRE, I took about a month or two to study for that. MCAT, I took several months, and I got my scores back, and I felt like I could pursue a direction either way, but I was better suited for the PhD route. But yeah, there's a lot of time that goes into contacting professors of interest, really investigating what the strong suits of the school are research wise, or what opportunities they have available in the area. I mean, it's really important to look at geographically where it's located. And if you're interested in industry, what connections can you get out of it? So there's a lot of prep work and trying to talk to people, preparing your personal statement, asking for letters of recommendation was difficult too, but less difficult for me because the small school feel, all my professors knew me very well. And I felt like that gave me an awesome competitive edge in the process. But yeah, there's certainly, it was a ton of prep work for grad school while still taking, I think at that time I was taking 15 credit hours in that first semester and starting a senior design project. So it is just a lot going on at once. But that's why you got to start things weeks in advance, months in advance for the application process. And I know there's a lot of people in my cohort who were in the same boat and they were able to do it well too. But I think that's just what prepares us as engineers, is you got to kind of take things one step at a time and really plan things out.
So with being at John Hopkins now, you said, again, you've been there for a month. Like, what does the first month look like? You know, obviously you talked about the blood-brain barrier and that aspect and the research. Like, was it day one, you just jump right into it, or what does kind of that initial orientation look like?
Right. So I signed up for, as the department rule for PhD students, you have to complete 30 credit hours. So I believe I'm taking 11 this semester, and it's the split between engineering and biology. So right now I'm in 3 engineering courses, and my first day of class was not my first day in the lab, but my first official day in the lab where I'm actually doing research was the first day of class. And that's kind of how I prepped it. I came in a couple weeks early to kind of get used to, okay, what equipment does the lab have, you know, and some administrative things like how can I get access to previous documents in the lab, you know, where's my office space at. But yeah, day one, I have a class, not Monday, but Tuesday, I have 2 classes. So I'm in class, taking notes over Zoom, they're online. And then the rest of the time I'm in the lab, you know, working on my project. And we have weekly meetings every week with my mentor, which is in science, it's called a personal investigator. So me and all the other graduate students in the lab report, you know, what we find in our experiments. For me, it's very early on, so I'm not doing a ton of experimentation right now. But yeah, that's like the typical day to day, and that's 5 days a week. Sometimes on the weekends, if you need to. Anything with working with cells, you know, you gotta feed them and make sure that they're doing okay. So sometimes that's a 7-day-a-week job, unfortunately. But that's just the way it goes. But that hasn't been the case for me yet because I haven't been working with a ton of cells. But yeah, that's just kind of what you expect. I mean, some days you could be in the lab for 12 hours. The next day you could be in from 4 to 6, depending on what's going on. So I've learned that the work schedule is very fluid, and definitely the first couple of years, your classes are first priority because you have to pass them in order to even do research. So those are very important.
And how long is the total program, Alex? Like, how many years will you be at John
Right.
Hopkins?
So that kind of depends on what your career interests are and
Okay.
kind of the lab that you work in. Some labs, you might have to wait months to complete a certain experiment, depending if you're trying to grow mice or, you know, culture cells, you know, prep cells for experiments. So that plays a factor. But the big thing is, what do you want to do after your career? So if you want to be an academic, you want to be a professor in a research lab, you know, run your own lab, you're going to need probably up to 6 to 7 years because you want to obtain more publications underneath your belt to kind of show like, hey, I can do good research. Somebody hire me on as a postdoc to prepare even more so I can prepare for that career as a professor. But if you're industry minded, you know, publications aren't as important. What's really important is gaining the skills that certain companies in industry require for you to be successful. So that's looking more at like the 4 to 6 year window as opposed to the 5 to 7. So I could definitely say I'm looking to go into industry. So I'm looking at, you know, probably about 5 years to completion. So I don't want to go any longer with school. I'm really excited to work, but I realize that, you know, I might need some more skills to get a job that I really want.
What is that job, Alex?
Yeah, so
What's the dream?
The dream job, you know, at the end of the day, when I'm older and I've worked in industry for a while, I want to be, the head of research and development at a large pharmaceutical or medical device company. I like doing research, but I also like working with people and working as a team. And I want to take on more business challenges in industry in addition to science and engineering. It's very important to be affluent with what's going on in the business world. And that's what I learned in undergrad. You're never going to get anything done if the engineers, the scientists, and the business people are all not on the same page. So for me, an ideal career would be an intersection between business, engineering, and science, kind of running the research. Where are we going to distribute our funding toward? What's important? What's a hot topic in, for instance, cancer research? What's something that looks promising? I would say that's an ideal career, or, being an entrepreneur and being the CEO of my own company. I think that sounds really cool too, if the right opportunity were to present itself, but you never know. So those are my ideal careers.
Awesome.
That's cool. That is really cool. And like you said, I like the thinking of the intersection. You said there's these three groups that need to all have that intersection, need to all communicate properly for, everything to go smoothly. And you see yourself kind of like the center of that Venn diagram of those three parts.
Yeah,
cool.
No, it's definitely important. Anything business related things, those skills are very important to have, whether it's just, being able to communicate scientific jargon between scientists, engineers, and, business people of venture capital firms. I mean, just being able to develop those business basic concepts is very important in today's world.
For sure. That is awesome. Wow. So I really appreciate you sharing all of this, Alex. This has been great. I kind of want to wrap kind of our conversation and interview up with, here on Hometown Highlights podcast, we focus a lot on community and those people around us. And, kind of a broad, open-ended question for you, but, essentially what does community mean for you, or what has it meant for you? Kind of, I see it as like three stages of your life that we've kind of talked through between your time at Arcadia and in high school, growing up here, but then also at Trine and the community that you had there, then obviously the community that you have very new to, but also will grow into, in your close to 5 years at John Hopkins as well. So what does community look like for you, or potentially even from a future sense, what do you think community looks like in trying to be that intersection between these three groups?
Community to me, it looks like people being actively engaged with one another and sharing their experiences to help others grow. So the most unselfish thing would be being a community member to me. And I felt that at Arcadia. There's a lot of people within the school system and outside the school system who are willing to share with you what it takes to be successful, what things have they learned, what mistakes that they've made. And to me, that's what an ideal community member would do, is share with people who don't know as much as you, but you want to set them up to be successful. So especially in the school system there, I felt like there's a lot of people that really want the kids to be successful. And that just shows a strong sense of community and leadership. And the same thing at Trine. It's when you have people who will go out of your way to talk to you, ask you about your life and how you're doing, and what your dreams and aspirations are. So to me, community is really those people who will reach out, even though they're not required to. They will reach out and try and help you, and understand that they've made mistakes in the past, and that they want to help future generations into not making the same mistakes. And like I had mentioned, Arcadia and Angola, Indiana, the communities are the same. They want you to be successful, and they want to provide you with the opportunities to be successful. It's up to you whether you want to take those or not. Everybody has choices. People love choices. But the best communities are the ones who give people the most choices.
Boom. I love it. Being a community member, the most unselfish thing that you can do. And it's just a part of that team, and just using those attributes, those strengths that each individual person has for the better of the team, the community.
Right.
Alex, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. It's been incredible. Nice to meet you. It's been nice just to go through your story and hear, your perspective on, again, starting all the way back with breaking your femur and how that has led you to here and where you are today, and excited to see where you will go from here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for allowing me some opportunity to get some airtime with you. I've listened to a couple episodes. It's really exciting to hear about other community members and what they're up to. And I think with a lot of negativity sometimes in the news today, there's always positives in the community. And I'm glad that you guys highlight people who are trying to make a positive impact on the world.
Yeah, Alex, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. You're doing great things as a young person from, Arcadia, Ohio. It's cool to see where you're at over in Baltimore, and your future is definitely bright, and I can't wait to see where you go. I think you've got to be the first biomedical engineer that I know, and you're a cousin to boot. So I'm rooting for you. And if you ever need anything from us, make sure you reach out. But it's pretty impressive what you've done this far and in your short career. And we're all rooting for you back here. So thanks for coming on, and thanks for sharing your story. Hope we'll have you back, when you're that CEO or you're doing that business side of things, and we can talk about that. So this is pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, I'd love to be back in the Midwest for my career and doing things close to home. And I know there's plenty of opportunities, maybe closer to bigger cities, but I certainly enjoy what Northwest Ohio brings. And it's definitely very different from Baltimore, let me tell you. I mean,
just a little,
just a little. I mean, yeah.
You got to have better food over there, though, right? Plenty of places to eat. And
food's great.
Things to do.
Food's great if you're willing to pay a premium. I mean, things just aren't cheap out here, and it certainly reflects that on your, your rent and things of that nature. Basic necessities. Just going out makes you question what you're doing. But it's wonderful to try, the fair here in Baltimore, and you're really getting involved in a new community. Yeah. It's exciting, but at the same time, yeah, it's expensive. Everywhere you go, you got to pay to park, and that's definitely not a Findlay thing, right?
No, it's not a Findlay and Arcadia thing at all. I don't think anyone has ever paid anything for parking in Arcadia, Ohio.
No, as they shouldn't,
That's right. That's right. What is Baltimore known for any food items in general?
Right, and this is kind of unfortunate because I can't have shellfish, but crab cakes are huge here. I mean, crab is just, and have you ever heard of Old Bay seasoning?
Yeah.
Yeah, they just love it out here. I mean, they'll put it on chips, they'll put it on wings, they'll put it on shellfish, chicken. It doesn't matter. I mean, they love it out here. So, but definitely the crab cakes. And I know my parents were able to try some of that when they moved me in, and they were
cool.
Real big fans. I mean, I can't speak to it, which is unfortunate, but yeah. Definitely an East Coast thing.
Yeah, because mom and dad, are they have any trips planned? Are you coming home? Anything like that? What's that look like with your schedule?
Yeah, tomorrow I actually fly out of Baltimore. I'm going to Indianapolis. I'm in a wedding, so I'm in one of my buddies' weddings from college. But hopefully in Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'll be able to take some time. The beautiful part about being a grad student is that as long as you kind of get your research done and you show that you're making progress on your project, the hours you set for yourself, depending on the PI and the department, but for the most part, it's very fluid. So if you need to go home for a couple of weeks, that's certainly obtainable here. And Johns Hopkins is super supportive of, your mental health and, making sure that you're a person first before you're a grad student. So, I mean, Johns Hopkins is, like I mentioned, I can't speak enough about, it doesn't matter what the U.S. News and World Report says if you're number one through whatever. But at the end of the day, the community is very supportive, and I've been thankful for that. And I'm looking forward to working here for the next 5 years or so.
Awesome. Yeah, it'll be a good life experience for you that you can always talk about and remember. And obviously it's going to teach you a ton about what you're doing in your career, and it's awesome. It's good. It's so cool to hear, man. I just love it. So it's neat stuff, Alex.
Yeah, thank you guys again. I mean, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with me. It's been real exciting. I've never done a podcast before. I'm sure you guys are getting used to the swing of things. I mean, you just started it maybe like a year ago or so, right?
Yeah, it's less than a year. When did we start, Dom? It was like March-ish.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think we were talking about it like after the first of the year and officially started things probably March, April.
Yeah, this was one of those things that happened with COVID and, something that just like allowed us to do it because there was, travel essentially had stopped. There was no in-person appointments, and it was just a way we wanted to connect people with the community and just highlight people that were doing good, regardless of, is that a young person? Is that a high school athlete? Is that a business owner? Is that a nonprofit? I mean, really anything. So it's been kind of fun to hear people's stories and just kind of share those with folks. And yeah, but that's, kind of one of those, everything happens for a reason things. And this was kind of something that came out of COVID.
Yeah.
It's not as cool of a story as you breaking your leg and going into biomedical engineering and pushing you that way. But, it's just one of those things. Everything happens for a reason. And yeah, no, it's fun having you on here, man. I love talking with this and what you're doing. And, your grandmother, Sandy, is always posting about some of the stuff you're doing. I just love her, man.
You would think she's my editor or something. I mean, it's ridiculous.
She's
not a publicist.
I know she's not a publicist. She's your grandma, so she is. I mean, she is so proud of what you're doing. I love, her enthusiasm and, just some of the stuff. It's so cool to read about. But no, yeah, don't be bashful of that stuff, man. Soak that up. It's awesome what you're doing. And I think she really just wants her community members to know where you're at and what you're doing and the good you're doing. So it's awesome to see. So there's a shout out for Sandy. She's, I just love how she's connecting and the stuff she's doing on Facebook and so forth for you. So it's pretty cool to see.
She had this is a funny story. You guys might find this amusing. She had told the courier she wanted to run something about me speaking at Trine at graduation. So I'm like working on homework or something for class. And I get this call from 419 area code. I'm like, oh, I should probably answer that. So I picked it up and she was like, this lady was like, hey, I'm from the Courier. Somebody requested to run a story about you. I said, let me guess who that was. I said, was her name, Sandy Franks? And she said, yeah. Did she tell you about this? I said, no, but this is just what I expect out of her. She is she is the ultimate grandma, and I'm really blessed. I mean, I have two great grandmas in my life. They're amazing. They're amazing people on both my mom and dad's side.
Yep.
And they've always been super supportive.
It's awesome. Yep, you've got good families on both sides, obviously, and they've always been very supportive of you and the entire family in general. So, very very cool story, and it's not. I'm not surprised. What else can I say?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thanks, Alex. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for being an awesome community member. Whatever community that may be. From Angola or Arcadia, to Angola, now to Baltimore and everything you're doing. So pretty impressive. Stay in touch with it. Like I said, if you need anything, reach out, and thanks for everything you do.
Yeah. Thank you guys again. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. You can.
Boom. That's where we can end it.